Hello, we are live. Rotoworld Fantasy Baseball Q&A. Back, Eric Samulski back with James Schiano. It's been a while, James. I was on vacation. We had the Olympics. You were at a wedding. It was just it's been a crazy summer right now.
Yeah, crazy summer. That's coming to an end very quickly, and now we
Don't you say that?
got to keep an eye on your fantasy baseball championships right now. That's the most important part of the end of summer.
It is. It is an extremely important part right now. Scott Pianowski and I on the Rotoworld podcast are shifting towards looking at, end of season, how to manage your categories for the end of the year. I think right now the people that are going to be tuning in are people who are, grinding for the finish. I assure you, even with a month left in the season, it's, let's call it 5 weeks, 6 weeks. You can make up a lot of ground in Roto formats because there are a lot of people who are checking out. When people check out, they don't make roster moves, and any little move, you can move from 6th, 7th up into the money. And I know that might not be winning your league, but hey, getting some money out of it is better than getting no money. So keep grinding. We're here to help you through it. How are you doing in yours, James? You in some contention for some of your leagues?
Overall, yeah, I just skew mostly towards head-to-head leagues. I do a lot of other rotisserie, but the ones I think I always perform better into the head-to-head just for that aspect of reaching playoffs and doing it. My 2 full season rotos, I'm in the Fantasy Baseball, Great Fantasy Baseball International. I've just hung the whole year right exactly 100 points, just between 3rd and 4th in my league and between 50 and 100 in the overall. So it's just like I've had so many injuries, I can't move up, but I'm just fighting just to stay in that upper third. And I have a dynasty full season roto with OPS and quality starts. That the trade deadline happened last week, and it was the most active trade deadline I've ever had in a fantasy league in my life, where it was midnight on Tuesday or Wednesday. And not even kidding, I fielded 3 phone calls between the hours of 11 and 12 with multiple owners trying to orchestrate 3-team trades. I wound up moving Bobby Miller because I'm in contention and close to the money for Zach Eflin, which was weird. And at the second, I told everyone, like, Bobby Miller's going. I really want to make a move in here. And I got very fascinating offers for him. I even wound up trading to the guy in first place, which was weird. At the same time, he traded me Eflin for Bobby Miller, when then he traded his own Cole Reagans for Jack Flaherty to try and get some more in-season value while grabbing his wild card for the next year. It was all that happened between 11:55 and 12, which was crazy. But that's why we play. Around. Yeah, that's the joy.
That's why we play. Yeah, that's a lot of shifting around. I got some Bobby Miller. We could talk about that. He, made a start over the weekend. He was one of my big keepers in a home league. It was brutal. I'm going for it in that home league. I'm in second. I made a trade. It involved getting Austin Riley. That is a continuation in this home league. The last few years, like a couple years ago, I traded for Mike Trout at the deadline. He got hurt. I traded for Max Scherzer at the deadline. He got hurt. I traded for Austin Riley at the deadline this year. He got hurt. It doesn't work out for me every time I go for it. But yeah, head-to-head leagues, I'm feeling I don't do as well in. I tend to be more roto specific, at least in terms of things that I find I have success in. We're going to dive in. We got some questions. We got a lot of content to cover. We are going to try to get to as many of these as possible. You can ask your questions on YouTube. You can ask on Twitch. And yeah, let's dive right in. We got this question online before, and I had a different answer then than I do now. So the question is Logan O'Hoppe, Adrian Del Castillo, or MJ Melendez for a catcher spot rest of season. First of all, I'm just going to say this at the top. Rest of season is out of the way now, guys. Like, it's done. There is no more rest of season. Like, go week to week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all that kind of stuff. Let's try to go beyond. I'm going to set it and forget it for now. Right. My easy answer, or my answer initially, was Logan O'Hoppe. I do like Logan O'Hoppe. I thought that, he did have a really good start to the year. Prior to the All-Star break, was hitting 276 with 14 homers in 83 games. That lineup is not good, but I was a believer in Logan O'Hoppe. And I think I just overlooked how poorly he has done in the second half of the year. and whether that's, an issue with himself, or whether it's just with the team context kind of dragging everything down, which does happen. I mean, hitting 189 since the All-Star break with 37 strikeouts in 24 games is not great. And then when you pair that with a lineup that is not playing well, I think if I'm taking my own advice and saying I'm not looking rest of season, but I'm looking for the immediate, I think Adrian Del Castillo is probably the answer here, because we know he has legit power and we know he is going to start in the immediate. And when Gabriel Moreno eventually comes back, if that clouds the playing time, we can then cross that bridge when we get there. But I think I'm shifting my answer to Del Castillo here.
I agree with you. Del Castillo right now is kind of like the John Kenzie Noel or Joe Adell of catchers, where it's just he's hitting the ball so well right now, and there's a lot of things that are underlying that would make me nervous generally if this was June. But again, right now it's August 20th. He's hot. Mm-hmm. The Diamondbacks are hot. He hits lefty as a catcher, which is pretty unbelievable, and he hits the ball incredibly hard. Like he doesn't have many batted balls yet, just 20, but it's a 25% barrel rate in those 20 batted balls. This is a guy who right now can do things in even 1 week's time. We saw that yesterday. Like if you had the wherewithal to put Del Castillo in a lineup yesterday, you got 6 RBIs out of that. There's a chance that there are some catchers you will get 10 RBIs the rest of the season, and Castillo has the power and is in the lineup. You can do that in one day. So that's relevant, especially when you said like there's no more rest seasons. Like who can get me the most stats right now this second, and then we'll figure out on Sunday if we have to change.
And I think like he was an underrated name. He played all of last year, or majority of last year, at AAA. All of this year has been at AAA, but the strides at AAA, I don't think enough people are like talking about it, right? This year he hit 319 in 100 games at AAA with 24 homers, but his strikeout rate last year at AAA was 29%. It was down to 17% this year at AAA. The walk rate hovered around 11.5%, which was down a little bit from last year because he was being a little bit more aggressive, but he had just a 9.8% swinging strike rate at AAA. So you've got a catcher who was hitting over 300, who also has plus power, who also had a sub 10% swinging strike rate at AAA. So even though we expect that to go up at the major league level, we've talked so much about the gap between AAA and MLB pitching, etc. Like this is a guy who, no, he's not going to hit over 300 at the MLB level, I don't believe, but he's going to hit very real power. And I really do think that strikeout rate is going to come down into the mid 20%. And I think he's a really strong option. And there's a chance also, like maybe they sneak him some DH at bats. I mean, if Gabriel Moreno comes back and Christian Walker comes back, then you also have Jock Peterson and Josh Bell, and it gets a little cluttered. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, ironically, if he was a righty, he'd have a better chance to sneak those DH at bats from Jock Peterson. But him being a lefty is better now, but could be worse later. But again, like we have to play in the now. And I remember when you got called up, I was like, I'm not going to trust this because I hate trusting like a PCL guy like this to come up as a stopgap. But like, everything you just said is true. Like probably should have been more trusted those improvements more, because now he is showing it full throttle. Also, I can't believe a league where MJ Melendez is still eligible at catcher. I feel like he hasn't played catcher in a year. Oh, he is really?
Yahoo. Yeah. Because he got enough games last year. So Yahoo formats, he is a catcher, and I'm using him in one because, you get that catcher outfield eligibility. You can move him around, which is nice. Yeah. In the spirit of like the here and now playing it, Uncle Ted's coming back at how's that Tyler Ferguson over Lucas Urseg move going? And honestly, it was going great. Like I'm not mad at it. Lucas Urseg got traded. Tyler Ferguson was the closer until Mason Miller came back. Lucas Urseg was not the closer in Kansas City. It was Hunter Harvey, and then Hunter Harvey got hurt, and then Lucas Urseg became the closer. So like things are going to happen. You have to make calls in the moment. Lucas Urseg was traded out of a closer role and was not going to be the closer until an injury happened. And just like Jorge Lopez was traded or was cut and not in a closer role, and then now Hector Neris got DFA'd, and I think Jorge Lopez is the closer for the Cubs, which is just like a wild turn of events from what happened at the end of the Mets career. But this wasn't a question that was asked, but just if you're looking for saves, hey, Hector Neris DFA'd today. Jorge Lopez was looking pretty good, probably going to be the closer, is somebody to keep in mind if you're looking for saves at the end of the year.
Yeah, Ursig is sensational right now. That same
he's so good.
He saved me in the saves and holds league because I'd had him, and then now he's a closer. I'm like, oh my gosh! And since he got traded to the Royals, he's already up to 12 strikeouts in quick math, 9 in the third inning. So that's also then dual categorical help.
And I even if Hunter Harvey were to come back, like, I don't think he's giving back the job, right? It's him. We'll see what happens next year. I believe Harvey's still under contract for next year, but like, again, you cross that bridge when you get there. But so far, so good on Lucas Erceg. We alluded to Josh Bell before. So Basebone asked the question, Josh Bell or Nolan Jones in a standard 5x5. Nolan Jones, who I believe was activated, but he has not yet. He's not yet played a game in the second half. So this is all just like the, hey, upside of Nolan Jones maybe healthy and playing in Coors versus what we're currently getting right now from Josh Bell. And as we have talked about, I think you have to go Bell here because what we're currently getting from Josh Bell is good. And I just don't know what I'm going to get from Nolan Jones. And so I'm not, unless like I was desperate for speed, for steals, because we know Josh Bell isn't going to run and Nolan Jones could at least chip in a few. That's really the only way for me that I would be choosing Jones over Bell right now.
Yeah. What the biggest thing about Jones is that this time of year for starting pitchers and players on the Rockies, the most important thing to pay attention to is schedule. And I think right now isn't the worst time to maybe give Jones a shot because next week he has 7 games at Coors Field, 4 against the Marlins, who are bad, and 3 against the Orioles, who are good but have bad starting pitching. Then the week after that, 6 games on the road. Then the week after that, to split 3-3. Week after that, split 3-3. And then the last week of the fantasy season, 6 games at home. So there's definitely a way if you have a roster spot to hide Jones on there, sneak him in, figure it out. And then if you catch lightning in a bottle for those Coors weeks, you can finagle and play with this spot rather than be like, I have to have Nolan Jones or Josh Bell. Like the way to get the best production out of those 2 guys in total or any 2 players on your roster is definitely do mixing and matching with Jones. And you have some nice, beautiful week, especially if you're in a weekly league, to try it next week and give yourself a shot.
Yeah, that could work. And, Bell has cooled off a little bit, hitting 234 in August after, starting off pretty hot coming over in the trade or in that trade. But 4 home runs in 16 games in August. I don't know. Christian Walker doesn't have a set timeline for return. Obviously, when Walker comes back, it's going to get confusing because they don't really like playing Jock Peterson in the outfield. But you kind of have to DH Jock Peterson against righties. So then what happens to Josh Bell? Because you're not going to bench Christian Walker against righties. But again, that's a conversation for down the road. Something to consider if people are rostering Josh Bell, as we don't really know what the playing time is going forward. You mentioned the Rockies. Lou asks, what's your take on Ryan McMahon? I have him as a corner infield, middle infield eligible, but the past month has been awful. Brandon Lowe is available in my league. Thoughts? I got to tell you, I sat Ryan McMahon last week and they were playing in Colorado.
Wow.
And I didn't miss much.
Yeah, no, you didn't.
The first against the Braves, he went 4 for 14 with 3 runs scored and 2 RBIs. So solid, first start to the week. That was the week before. It was the then he against the Padres is the start of this week. And we're looking at 1-4 against San Diego, and then turning into this week so far 1 for 12 with an RBI in the 3 games against the Padres. Overall, he has been just really atrocious since the really hot start where everybody was like, hey, the Rockies should really trade him because his value is never going to be higher. And it was never going to be higher, and the Rockies should have traded him because he hit 232 in July with just 2 home runs and 25 strikeouts in 24 games. He's hitting 102.
Jeez.
In 14 games in August with 22 strikeouts in 14 games. Brandon Lowe has been awesome.
On fire.
And they're playing Brandon Lowe against lefties some of the time. Yeah. I know that you want Rockies when they're playing in Coors. I don't think it's crazy to go Brandon Lowe over Ryan McMahon right now.
No, definitely not, especially considering the shape of McMahon's season, like you mentioned, and the shape of Lowe's season. Like Lowe just keeps getting better. Like his slugging percentage in July was .638, with a 407 on base percentage and 325 average. August, he's cooled down a bit, but I think it's just because we're still so early in the month. He's blazing hot right now, like ridiculously hot. And the fact that he is playing against lefties, you have to worry. He'll sit once in a while against them, but even when he's in the lineup against them, he's still in the upper third. Lowest will go as fourth. I think he was fourth in a game against either Kikuchi or Valdez in the weekend series against the Astros. That was last week, but he's too hot to ignore right now. And if he is available in any league, you should be all over him.
Yeah, I lucked into a share where I picked him up when I thought he was going to come off the IL. It was like an extra week, and I was like, I might have to drop him because he's not coming back when I thought. And then sometimes it's got lucky and stayed on my roster, and he's been really good. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than right. Mm-hmm. There's a question from Jeddah who said he was looking at Matthew Pouliot's early 25 SP ranks, and he has Reagan's at 8 and Garrett Crochet at 16. How would a change of scenery for Crochet affect his ranks? Crochet is in Chicago. I think if they didn't trade him now, like this season, I'm not really expecting a change of scenery. I guess maybe if they are terrible next year too, and they decide they want to get something for him, but heading into the year, you are getting Garrett Crochet in Chicago. You're not going to get him anywhere else. So I kind of agree with Matthew's rankings there. I'm sticking with, Crochet where he's at, but top 20, I think, is totally fair for even top 15 for what Crochet did this year.
I think that's low. I bet by the time we get to March in the NFBC drafts, he's going around pitcher 10, pitcher 7, like probably possibly around the same. The only concern is really it's the injury, because now you have a guy that it's just he has the injury history is amazing. It's not amazing, horrible, but amazing how much injury history there is. And every pitcher in that list, you're kind of weighing your past injuries versus your future injuries. And Crochet, there's more of a concern of both. Or Reagan's, I guess that is too. And Crochet, the other thing is he's still really, to ascend to the next level, needs a third pitch more than he needs to leave the White Sox. I think if he gets traded, it's going to be next deadline, but it's just four-seam cutter. I know he's been amazing this whole year. He's trended down recently, but it feels like that's more of workload things and rhythm things. But just if I see him like legitimately throwing a changeup in spring, I think that would be much more of an impact for me than if he's traded to a team that's not the White Sox.
Yeah. And listen, there's some team context too of like the rank. He's going to go up the rankings, but the White Sox could still be terrible next year too. Something to keep in mind.
They'll be so bad next year, the White Sox, right? Could you imagine him having more than 70 wins next year going up from 30?
Who knows what they're going to do in the offseason, right? My thinking is if you didn't trade Luis Robert and you didn't trade Garrett Crochet, it's because you plan to contend next year, or at least be better next year, which would mean they plan to go out and spend some money this offseason. We'll see if they do, but there's no reason to keep those guys if you're not going to actually like try to build a winner. Who knows? But also I don't really know what type of moves they'll make that like really drive the needle beyond. I'm just thinking like, will they not be a dumpster fire is basically what we're looking at.
You need like 5 position players and basically 3.5 pitchers to not be a dumpster fire next year.
Exactly. Yeah. Basebone is following up on the McMahon question with Miguel Rojas or McMahon. And for me, it's pretty easily McMahon.
Yeah, it's still McMahon. If McMahon didn't play in Coors, maybe that'd be closer, but I can't, especially because I think today the Dodgers activated Tommy Edman. So I think that
he played, he started at first at center field. He started center field yesterday. Though I really do think they're going to move him around a little bit.
I hope so.
He's in center, but that they didn't. That has kind of benched Kevin Kiermaier and benched Jason Hayward. I think there are going to be days where they decide they want Kiermaier's glove in center field. They move Kiermaier to center. They put Tommy Edman at short. So I think he's going to move all around. I don't think Rojas is going to be a regular. I know he started the last 5 games, but I don't think Rojas is going to be a regular starter. I also, they activated Muncy yesterday as well, the Dodgers. So Rojas, who had started a couple games at third, isn't really going to shuffle to third as much.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy McMahon for me.
This is a crazy stat about Miguel Rojas. This is no importance to his fantasy value, but just something that's amazing. He has a 2% whiff rate against fastballs this season after seeing 500 of them. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's just again, no, that doesn't mean you should
Good for you,
roster him,
Miguel
but
Rojas.
yeah, it's pretty amazing that every fastball he swung at this year, he's only swung and missed 2% of them.
Yeah. Uncle Ted says, "Give me Porter Hodge over Jorge Lopez for the Cubs closer." I will just say, I used to work with Greg Jewett at Reliever Recon. I love the work that Greg does. I love the work that Reliever Recon does. Greg says Jorge Lopez, and I tend to trust what Greg is saying. He does a lot of intense bullpen work. Also, Jorge Lopez got the save on Sunday. He was pitching in the rain. He gave up a leadoff homer to Addison Barger, but that was the first run he's allowed in 15 games. Jorge Lopez has been quietly like electric and moving up the leverage ladder in Chicago. So I think it is going to be him. But listen, Porter Hodge has been pitching well too, and I think he's the next guy in line. So depending on how they utilize Lopez and Hodge, if somebody's getting like, the high leverage innings, even if they're in the 8th inning or the whatever, I think Hodge is in the mix, but I still think it's going to be Jorge Lopez. That's my call on that one. Yeah. Keith says, "Do you think Jesus Sanchez can be an impact bat down the stretch?" A lot of red on that Savant page. Listen, I love Jesus Sanchez. Jesus Sanchez has appeared in maybe like 6 of my articles this year. He was on like a bat speed leaderboard. He was on a short swing leaderboard. He's been on like barrel rate leaderboards. He's been on, Jesus Sanchez is so intriguing to me. Because I really do think the quality of contact is strong. And listen, he's going to strike out 26% of the time or more. And so he may never be better than a 250 hitter, but he's going to crush baseballs. He's also going to sit against all left-handed pitching, play for a team that's not very good, and in a pitcher's ballpark. And so there are some things you need to keep in mind for that, where it's like this week, they get Eduardo Rodriguez today and Jordan Montgomery tomorrow and Shota Imanaga over the weekend. So that's 3 lefties in 5 games. Now, I will say he did play against the last left-handed pitcher they faced. So maybe the Marlins are just saying, hey, screw it. We're going to see if you can hit lefties. But he hasn't really in his career. And if they do decide to sit him down, you really do need to factor in the lefty-righty splits there. He goes to Colorado next week. Kyle Freeland's, set to face him. They've got, some other lefties in the mix there. The Rockies do. So if they start sitting him against lefties, actually, he doesn't get Gomber. So, who knows? But I love Sanchez. I just think you need to look at the schedule.
Yeah. 9 for 75 this year against lefties, Sanchez, with 5 walks versus 24 strikeouts and a 185 on base percentage. It's very bad, but they have no reason not to play him. It's not like he's, I don't know. It's just, there's enough physical tools there where I'm going to continue to roster him because the playing time is probably going to be good enough because they have no reason not to play him against lefties at this point.
Yeah. I think if you're in a 15-team league, like he's somebody that's worth holding and maybe you rotate him to your bench, when they face a lot of lefties. In a 12-teamer, I think he is somebody you can stream on and off because especially if it's weekly lineup locks, he's on the waiver wire in a lot of those leagues throughout the year because, people don't want to pick him up. Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah. But I do like Jesus Sanchez. I also like what Byron Buxton's done this year, but Lou says he has Buxton stashed on the IL, assuming he's reactivated when eligible, which is always a really big assumption with Byron Buxton. Would you trust him over Michael Harris, Lourdes Gurriel, James Wood, Tyler Fitzgerald, Ceddanne Rafaela, and Spencer Steer?
Some of them? That's a weird order to name those players in. Like Steer going last. Steer's been one of the fantasy baseball MVPs this year. Harris
I think he may have been just like, this strikes me as like going down your outfield list, and like Rafaela's a util or an infield, and Steer is
one third base. Yeah. But I probably would over Gurriel and maybe Rafael and Fitzgerald, but definitely not Wood, Steer, or Harris. I think he just falls in between. If Buxton's playing, he should be in your lineup. He was hitting for enough power. He was productive enough in a lot of other categories where he just has to be in there. He was simply too good. He also might not be. I haven't heard anything that he's going to be activated when he's eligible. I haven't seen anything specifically about that. So just keep. I don't know. Again, like Gurriel, no. Fitzgerald, maybe. The other guy's not. Rafael also maybe, but that's kind of where it is. You can find a spot for him.
How dare you on Ceddanne Rafaela?
What?
People don't understand how good he's been.
No, he's been good, but it's I don't know. He always hits in the bottom of that order. They're not really hitting right now at all.
I mean, in 29 games in the second half of the year, Rafaela is hitting .309 with 2 home runs, 18 runs scored, and 6 stolen bases. Since June 1st, Rafaela has been very, very good. Just batting averages by month, 315 in June, 287 in July, 306 in August. He has 17 steals and 13 homers on the year. Like, I'm taking Rafaela over Byron Buxton because I also get the shortstop outfield eligibility. Now, Lourdes Gurriel, to me, I'd rather have Buxton. Gurriel is hitting well since the break, but Gurriel doesn't run. And he has just 1 homer in like 24 games since the All-Star break. He has 14 on the season, but there was that one stretch where he was like on a homer barrage where he had like, 9 home runs in 7 games or something stupid like that. I just think, Gurriel is going to give you solid batting average, but I think Buxton maybe gives you more 5 category value. And then Fitzgerald is another one of like, listen, I think it's going to collapse at some point.
It's come back to earth a bit here.
It's come back to earth a little bit, but he's still running.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he has 7 steals in 17 games in August. So it's come back to earth a little bit, but he's still hitting over 330 in August, 7 steals, 5 home runs. Like, even when the batting average is down, he's been running. And so if you want the 5 category upside, it really depends. Like, do you need speed?
Yeah.
Again,
from this list, if you have one open spot in your starting lineup, both these guys have roster spots in your bench. Each have 6 games apiece. Each are 3 at home, 3 on the road. Or are you starting Buxton or Rafaela? Or both are healthy.
Rafaela.
I think I would do Buxton. I want that upshot. A 9 hitter who's still not hitting. I guess he's the counting stats are crazy. And hitting 9 helps him score a lot more runs. But you're getting more at bats. You're getting more power. Getting a better lineup. I would go Buxton.
You're getting more power.
Yeah.
You're getting a worse batting average. You're getting no speed.
Slightly worse batting average. Rafael has had Buxton's 275 in the year.
Yeah, but he's hitting 237 since the All-Star break. He's hitting 250. I mean, it's only 8 games in August, but
yeah,
Rafaela has been much better from June 1st on. You're getting more speed, which is crazy on
you're getting more
saying about Buxton, but he's not really running as much this year.
Steals, yeah.
Our RBIs, home runs and RBIs, I think favor Buxton. To me, the other stuff favors Rafaela.
Yeah, runs are probably even.
And again, you have the shortstop outfield eligibility with Rafaela and with Fitzgerald, which is interesting if you're able to kind of move guys around, which has some added strategy. More outfielders to talk about because Basebone says Jock Peterson, Alex Call, or Victor Robles in a standard 5x5. Where are you going here? And I don't know, Basebone, if you're here. I think with Jock Peterson involved in this, saying whether it's a weekly lineup lock or a daily lineup lock is super important because Jock is going to sit against lefties. And so that does impact it a little bit. But let's just say this is standard, like weekly lineup lock. Where are you going here?
It comes back to what we were just talking about. Do you need power or speed? Like that's just where we are this time of year. And Robles he went a couple of games where it stopped, and now he started back up again. He's still stealing bases as much as he can. I'm going to double check right now where he's been hitting in the lineup since Julio came back, but it's like he is playing every day. He's playing good defense. He's stealing bases. Jock will probably have a much better OPS, more home runs, more RBIs from now to the end of the season. But Robles is giving you more across the board and playing more consistently, where I would lean him.
What if I told you that in the Fangraphs player waiter over the last 2 weeks, far and away the best of this trio is Alex Call?
I've seen that.
who was
Call is
the
hot.
who was the 33rd ranked outfield, 22nd ranked outfielder over the last 2 weeks, hitting 340 in his 55 plate appearances with 9 RBIs, 6 runs, 2 home runs, 1 stolen base. He is an everyday player for the Nationals now, and basically hits first or second most games, depending on what CJ Abrams is doing. I weirdly think I lean call here. Basebone has chimed in to say it is a daily league, which is obviously nice for Jock Peterson. So I would say if you want power over all else, Jock Peterson. And otherwise, if you're not like struggling for power, I think I go with Alex Call.
Call's been good, but this is still, to me, just feels like the same guy that's meandered around the fringes of the Nationals outfield the last few years with middling power. I don't know. It's like the plate discipline's good, but it's just this is almost a fear this time of year where you don't want to pay for the things that happen. I want to pay for the things that will happen. And I'm so confident that of these 3 guys, Call will probably have the worst next 5 weeks and closer to the best.
Are you confident that he'll be worse than Victor Robles? Because we've kind of seen this with Victor Robles before too, right? Where like
at least Robles
he has
like
stretches
a tangible
and then
change.
Goes,
yeah.
Sure.
And at least he's going to steal a bag for you. I mean, Call's still some bags too, so maybe he will. But Robles, even with Julio returning and with Randy Rosarena in the lineup, he's hitting leadoff. He's hit a leadoff every single game except for one since July 26th. So just that alone, I'd give him a shot. But if it's daily, I think I'm still going Peterson. It's just too much day-to-day production.
I think in a daily league, yes, I would agree with you. I think that skews where I would go there as well. Peterson has been really good. He will also pinch hit. So if they start a lefty and then they go to a righty reliever, he'll come in the game and pinch hit. And so I think that kind of stuff is important. This is an interesting. Uncle Ted put this in here. It didn't even seem like a question, but I do want to talk about it because it's something Nick Pollock and I talked about last night on the Corner podcast. Uncle Ted just says, "Give me Bido and Beozo," which I don't know. Uncle Ted, you can chime in if that's just part of like your rhyme and you just want some bees in there, or you actually are interested in those guys as streamers. I talked with Nick about it, and I'm not in on Bido, and neither was he. Bido came in at like 94 on Nick's top 100. I understand how good he's been, but it's a little bit of like what you were saying with Alex Call. Like, we've seen this before. There's not anything really tangible. There's not really anything tangible to what Osvaldo Bido is doing, which makes me think, hey, this is a new pitcher. This is a change. I think he throws 94 and he has a version of a slider that is over the plate, but it's not particularly good. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't really love it. I don't know if you've seen anything that makes you think that he should stick on teams.
He got mostly rid of the sinker, which he was throwing about 25% of the time last year, and replaced it with more fastballs and this new cutter that he's been pretty okay with using against hitters on both sides of the plate, which I think is something that's helped him in a vacuum. And that cutter kind of, it's more of like a baby slider than a fastball variation. So he tunnels it pretty well in games I've watched over that slider, and he locates them in the same spots of the plate. But I'm not enthused by Bido, and I usually try to stay away from pitchers that don't get any ground balls and also walk a lot of batters, because if you put guys on base for free and you give up fly balls, you are just cruising for the blow up start. So I'm scared of that. But Beozo's kind of fun in an old school ragtag, junk baller kind of way. I covered the start Sunday against the Mets, and as a Mets fan watching and recapping every single inning, I was like, hit him, just hit him. And you just can't hit him because he's throwing 89 miles an hour. By the 6th inning, he was throwing 87 miles an hour, but he's just all over the place with a cutter that'll put on both sides of the plate. His fastball, it's not thrown hard, but he still sits it up in the zone, and players couldn't really square it up. The sweeper's good, and it's almost so slow that it works because it just sweeps all the way across against the righties. And then the changeup and the curveball are good enough where he can throw them against the lefties and not run into issues. So I see a guy with no spectacular stuff at all, but 3 pitches against righties, 4 against lefties. I'm like, all right, this is something that at least won't be easy to be in the box against the first time you see him. And for most of these players he's going to face over the next few weeks, it's going to be the first time they've seen him. So he's like lightning in a bottle. But again, I'm terrified of the 9 earned run 1 2/3 innings game for both of these guys.
Yeah, to me, they're both streamers, and I know Uncle Ted added Grant Holmes in here, who has currently lost his rotation spot
I think
with
talent
Reynaldo
wise,
Lopez coming back.
he's the best one on this list. I think.
Yes, for sure. And unfortunate timing for him that like Charlie Morton actually pitched well when Reynaldo Lopez was coming back, and so Charlie Morton is in the rotation still. I think if I knew Grant Holmes was going to start, to me, he's the easy guy here. But as of right now, he is out of the starting lineup. Starting rotation. And so I think you all of these guys are streamers, or Beozo and Beto are streamers. And I honestly think there might be better streamers out there. So you got to check your matchups for that.
Yeah.
Did you see?
What?
Go for it.
I was gonna say there's also something about this time of year where you might be out on the outside of rotation looking in right now, but a team that like the Braves, that every game is so monumentally important. If you are better than someone in, you will get an opportunity. Like I think about Ryan Nelson and the Diamondbacks right now, who was dropped in some places because it was so assumed that he would be leaving that rotation despite how well he was pitching with Merrill Kelly returning. And now he's back on the schedule to pitch tomorrow, start against the Marlins. That looks like a smash matchup. So if there's any reason for anyone on the Braves to miss a starter, then be deemed not useful enough, Grant Holmes will get a spot, and Grant Holmes ascends past these streamers for the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a really good call on Nelson. It was ridiculous to think that they would take him out of the rotation.
So good.
maybe honestly, they're waiting for him to have one bad start, so they feel like they have a reason to do it, which is unfortunate. But he has been great, and so I'm happy to still have shares of him wherever. I'm curious where. Like the rumors today are that the Braves are going to sign Gio Urshela, who will likely be their starting third baseman, because I guess the idea of going with Luke Williams or Alejo Lopez was not appealing to the Braves. I mean, Urshela like really couldn't. He had some flashes with the Tigers at times this year, but he couldn't hold down a job. Like, are you actually buying into Urshela as a starting third baseman for the Braves? Does that make him interesting to you?
I think if I was a fan of 29 teams in baseball besides the Mets, I would not even think about Urshela signing with the Braves, but I've just known. I've seen this movie before. The Braves signed someone who's barely a major leaguer, and he runs his way to 120 OPS plus for 5 weeks. These just might be the 5 weeks. And Urshela, like with playing time, like all jokes aside, the last few years, like he'll at least put the ball in play very consistently. He's generally given you a high batting average, like going back to 2021. Yankees, 440 plate appearances, 270. Twins, 500 plate appearances, 285. Last year, only 228 with the Angels, but 299. And this year, even with the Tigers, he wasn't very good, but he still found his way to a 240, which is bad, but it's the current league average. So he's someone who you put him in a lineup, you put him in a situation to win, you put him in a situation where he's pedals to the metal. You can at least sneak some batting average and some counting stats out of him in a nice CI spot in a 15-team league.
Yeah, I think 15-team league that totally plays. And so frustrating, but for sure. We got a couple more questions to get to, and then we'll get out of here. So you still have time to ask some, like Uncle Ted just asked our thoughts on Drew Rasmussen. Feel like he's going to start soon if the Rays stay in the race. Even still a lot of Budo vibes at worst. I don't necessarily think the Rays are in the race. I don't really think the Rays care if they're in the race. So I don't know that will play into it. But I do think it's possible that Rasmussen is starting. Remember that he just went 21 pitches in his last outing on Sunday out of the bullpen. So if they are going to ramp him up, it's going to take some time. You may start, and honestly, for fantasy purposes, let's say we start getting 4 innings out of him as a follower. Like that could be more than enough. Right. Depending on the team they're facing, you could sneak a win out of there. You get 4 good innings out of him. There could still be value there where he could be like a great long reliever out of the pen. I do think they're going to start building him up a little bit, because if they want him in the starting rotation next year, he can't throw just like 12 innings this year. Right. They have to actually get some innings out of him. I just don't know when that would happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the worst part about Rasmussen is that he's been so electric since he's been back. Like he looks fantastic. Like the velocity's back, the strikeouts are there. He hasn't walked a batter yet since he came back this season, which is amazing. I wish I was better at the stats because I would love to find out, like in the history of baseball, if any pitcher ever had one appearance where they threw the 8th and 9th innings, and their next appearance they threw the 1st and 2nd innings. Because that just seems to me like it's funny how the Rays are using him, and I think there weirdly would be more value for him in this Budo type role, where if he was pitching 7-8, 8-9, 6-7-8, like a time or two a week, and you could sneak in that save, you could sneak in that last inning win. But the fact that he was the opener last start, it makes me think he's going to be the opener and not a follower. It also makes sense from the Rays' perspective because they want to get him reacclimated to starting games, 1 and 2. If you are going to have him start and he has been pitching this well, you're going to have him pitch and he's been pitching this well. Pitch him against the best hitters on the other team. That's the 1st inning and probably the 2nd. So it seems like it's gonna mitigate the fantasy value moving forward, unless you just want to try and sneak in some ratios and some strikeouts just under the nose, barely, if you have a daily league and you can afford it here and there, and you can really track his usage and when you think he's going to pitch. But this is more of just building up for next year and seeing if he's trustworthy and healthy.
Agreed. Interesting question from Basebone, because I think the answer surprised me. It's Muncy or Caminero in 5x5 leagues.
Oh my God.
So I looked at what Muncy's been doing, before he was out for an extended period of time this year. The batting average has not been good for about 3, this year, but also for the 2 years before.
Yeah.
So Caminero, huge advantage in batting average.
Yeah.
But is that kind of where the advantage ends? I mean, Caminero we know he has power, hit 31 homers in the minors last year, 16 homers in 59 games this year. But Muncy also has tremendous power. Caminero has 1 RBI and no runs scored in 6 games so far for the Rays. We know the Dodgers lineup is better. So we know counting stats should probably be better for Muncy hitting in that Dodgers lineup. Yes, Caminero has 2 steals in 6 games with the Rays right now, but neither one of them is really going to give you a lot in speed. So like, I saw the question and expected to easily say Caminero. But now I'm thinking, unless I really needed batting average, I think we're talking redraft here. But unless I really needed batting average, I think the answer is Muncy.
I agree with you. I think it might easily be Muncy. Caminero now through 2 of these little cups of coffee in the majors. He's shown a complete inability to lift the ball. Nothing talking about where he's going to be long term, but it's talking about where he's going to be the next 5 weeks. Between the 2 weeks last year and now the week this year, it's over a 60% ground ball rate. And this year he's doing something weird where he seems to be uber patient. He seems to be taking as many pitches as he can. His swing rate's down to 42%. The league average is 47%. His zone swing is 53%. The league average is 67%. He's just not, he seems very passive. He's drawing a lot of walks because of that. He's been on base a lot. And he's weirdly still the guy who's here for power. Has been using his athleticism, and he's stolen 2 bags, which that could be another sneaky advantage if he keeps walking and trying to incorporate some skills. But right now it's a lot of walks. It's a bizarre profile for someone who should have a lot of power. And he's still so young. It's funny that the MLB.com, when they never really update players' heights and weights when they get called up from like when they're basically signed, and that looks much worse. The international signees on Baseball Savant right now, Junior Caminero is listed at 6'1", 157 pounds. 157 pounds is like what I weigh, and I am 5'7". So it's not those. It's just funny that they keep these things for years and years, don't update. But unless you're dying for speed and batting average, which is funny saying that from Junior Caminero's perspective, the guy who's been built with prodigious power, it's got to be Muncy. Everything will probably be better for Muncy.
Yeah, which is so weird to say, but that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at for this episode, or this edition, this day of the Rotoworld Fantasy Baseball Q&A. Please remember, tell your friends, right? Tell people who are competing. We're going to be here, right? We're here with you through the grind, through the end of the summer. We got a couple weeks left. We're going to make sure that we can help you get across the finish line in your leagues if we need to. When you ask all your questions, let us know the league context, all that kind of stuff, so we can help you as much as possible. If you have questions for us, you can reach out on Twitter. James is at James_Schiano. I'm at Samulski NYC, and we'll be back next Tuesday for another Rotoworld Fantasy Baseball